Before we begin, a quick and important disclaimer. The following content is provided for educational and entertainment purposes only. It does not constitute legal, financial, or psychological advice. Divorce laws and their applications vary significantly by jurisdiction, state statutes, and individual circumstances. You should consult with a qualified attorney, licensed financial planner, or certified therapist before making any decisions regarding your personal, legal, or financial affairs. The creators of this content are not responsible for any actions taken based on the information provided here. Every viewer is strongly encouraged to conduct their own due diligence and seek professional counsel tailored to their specific situation. In the mid-20th century, a man's identity in the United States was anchored by a singular, unbreakable contract, the traditional marriage. In 1950, divorce was not just a legal hurdle. It was a social catastrophe, a scarlet letter that could end a career or result in total social excommunication. Fast forward to the present day, and the landscape has shifted so violently that the statistics seem almost impossible to reconcile with that past. Current historical trends indicate that approximately 42 to 45% of first marriages in the U.S. end in divorce, but the deeper story lies in who is making the call. Studies consistently show that between 70 and 80% of divorces are initiated by women, a number that surges even higher when the couple is college-educated. This has created a unique, often silent crisis for American men who find themselves navigating a divorce industrial complex that many feel was not built with their modern roles in mind. We are witnessing the fallout of a massive cultural and legal experiment that began in the 1970s, and today, we are going to perform a deep dive retrospective on the evolution of the divorced man in America. This is not just about the end of a relationship. It is about the systemic dismantling of the male identity, the redistribution of generational wealth, and the quiet struggle of millions of fathers trying to remain relevant in a system that frequently views them as secondary. The problem this deep dive solves for you today is one of clarity and survival. Whether you are currently navigating a separation, reflecting on a past decree, or simply trying to understand the shifting ground of modern masculinity, you need to understand the mechanics of how we got here. By the end of this series, you will understand the historical pivot points that changed the legal leverage of men, the psychological data behind why men are often blindsided by walkaway scenarios, and the economic realities of the modern family court system. This is a masterclass in the American male experience of marital dissolution, designed to move past the surface-level bitterness and into a rigorous analysis of the facts. To understand the modern divorced man, we must first look at the massive legal tectonic shift known as the no-fault revolution. Prior to 1969, if a man or woman wanted a divorce, they had to prove fault. This meant providing evidence of adultery, extreme cruelty, or abandonment. This created a high barrier to entry for ending a marriage, which often kept families together, but also led to dead marriages filled with resentment and occasionally staged evidence to meet legal requirements. The turning point came in California when then-Governor Ronald Reagan signed the Family Law Act of 1969. This was the first no-fault divorce law in the country, allowing a marriage to be dissolved simply due to irreconcilable differences. Within a decade, nearly every state followed suit. The historical trend that followed was an immediate and sustained spike in divorce rates. For men, this changed the fundamental power dynamic of the household. Suddenly, the provider role no longer offered the security of a permanent home. Case studies from the 1970s and 80s show a generation of men who were raised with the expectation of the 1950s household, but were living in the reality of the 1970s legal system. These men often found themselves out of the house and paying significant portions of their income in alimony and child support, based on formulas that assumed the wife would never enter the workforce. This was the birth of the weekend dad, a cultural archetype that has haunted the American male psyche for over 50 years. The psychological impact of this shift cannot be overstated. When we look at the data regarding the initiation gap, we see a recurring pattern known as the lead-up period. Sociologists have found that while women often spend months or even years emotionally processing the end of a marriage before filing, men frequently report being completely blindsided. This blindside effect is a result of a breakdown in communication styles. Men are often socialized to view no conflict as all is well, whereas their partners may view the lack of deep emotional engagement as a slow death of the relationship. When the papers are served, the man is often at day 1 of his grieving process, while the initiator may already be at month 18 and ready to move on. This disparity leads to a chaotic reaction from men, which can negatively impact their legal standing during the initial phases of a divorce. Furthermore, we must examine the divorce industrial complex. This term refers to the multi-billion-dollar economy comprised of family law attorneys, forensic accountants, court-appointed evaluators, and mediators. In the United States, divorce is a business. For a high-net-worth man, the potential outcomes of a contested divorce can result in the loss of 50% or more of all marital assets, including retirement accounts, real estate, and business valuations. But the cost isn't just in the assets, it's in the process of attrition. Legal fees in a contested custody battle can easily exceed 6 figures, creating a financial barrier that often forces men to settle for less time with their children than they truly desire. The shift in fatherhood roles is perhaps the most significant part of this retrospective. In the past, the father was the distant provider. Today, many American men are deeply involved in the daily minutiae of their children's lives, making school lunches, coaching sports, and helping with homework. However, when these men enter the family court system, they often encounter a maternal preference bias that, while officially abolished in many states under the best interests of the child standard, still persists in practice. Case studies of custody battles in the early 2000s show that men often had to prove they were extraordinary parents to get 50-50 custody, whereas women were assumed to be the primary caregivers by default. This creates an environment of intense stress and identity crisis. If a man's identity is built on being a father, and the state restricts that role to 4 days a month, the psychological fallout is often a deep sense of purposelessness. We also have to discuss the gray divorce phenomenon. This refers to the doubling of the divorce rate among adults over the age of 50 since the 1990s. For men in this demographic, the challenges are uniquely financial and social. A man divorcing at 55 has significantly less time to recover the wealth lost in a settlement before reaching retirement age. Furthermore, because men tend to rely on their wives for their social scaffolding, divorced men in their 50s and 60s face a loneliness epidemic. Historical trends show that women are more likely to maintain social circles post-divorce, while men often find themselves isolated, having focused exclusively on work and the nuclear family for decades. This retrospective is not just a look at the past, it is a roadmap for the present. The modern American man is navigating a system where the social expectations have changed, the legal rules have been rewritten, and the economic stakes have never been higher. Understanding that 70% of these splits are initiated by the other side allows for a more clinical, less emotional approach to the pre-divorce or active divorce phase. It allows men to see that their experience is not an isolated failure of their character, but part of a larger, systemic shift in how the United States defines the family unit. As we move forward into the next parts of this deep dive, we will break down the specific financial traps, the psychological warfare of the courtroom, and the path to rebuilding a life that isn't just about surviving the split, but thriving in a new era of personal autonomy. This is the reality of the American divorced man. A story of loss, yes, but also a potential for a profound restructuring of what it means to be a man in the 21st century. To understand this restructuring, we must first confront the most immediate and visceral consequence of marital dissolution in the United States, the total economic recalibration of the male life. In the year 2026, the financial landscape of the American household has become increasingly complex, with the rise of digital assets, remote work jurisdictions, and a housing market that remains historically tight. When a marriage ends today, it is not simply a split of a joint bank account. It is a surgical separation of two lives that have been financially fused, often for decades. We are going to look at the financial guillotine of divorce through the lens of potential outcomes and historical trends, focusing on why the modern U.S. system often leaves men in a state of sudden, sharp regression. Imagine a man named David, a 48-year-old civil engineer living in a suburb of Denver, Colorado. It is May 2026. David has spent 24 years building a career, contributing to a 401k, and paying down a mortgage on a 4-bedroom home. When his marriage begins to dissolve, David enters a legal reality known as equitable distribution. In the United States, there are two primary systems for dividing assets: community property and equitable distribution. In community property states like California, Texas, or Arizona, the law generally mandates a strict 50-50 split of all assets acquired during the marriage. In equitable distribution states, which make up the majority of the U.S., the court looks for what is fair, but not necessarily equal. David soon discovers that fair is a subjective term. The first step in David's journey is the discovery phase. This is a deep, intrusive dive into every financial corner of his life. In 2026, this process has been accelerated by AI-driven forensic accounting tools that can scan years of digital transactions in seconds. Every Venmo payment, every fractional share of stock, and every retirement contribution is cataloged. Historical trends show that for many men, this is the moment the weight of the situation truly hits. David is required to provide a full accounting of his lifestyle, which leads to the calculation of the marital standard of living. This is a crucial metric in U.S. family law. The court seeks to ensure that the lower-earning spouse, historically the wife in about 70% of cases involving long-term marriages, can maintain a lifestyle similar to the one enjoyed during the union. This brings us to the concept of the lifestyle maintenance trap. Because David was the primary earner, the potential outcomes for his post-divorce income are sobering. He is introduced to alimony, now often referred to as spousal maintenance or spousal support. While the era of permanent, lifelong alimony has largely faded in favor of rehabilitative alimony, the financial impact remains heavy. In David's case, because he was married for over 20 years, he may be looking at paying a significant percentage of his gross income to his ex-wife for a duration that could last half the length of the marriage. Furthermore, a major shift in U.S. tax law that occurred in late 2018 continues to affect men in 2026. Alimony payments are no longer tax-deductible for the payer, nor are they considered taxable income for the recipient. This means David is paying his spousal support with post-tax dollars, effectively increasing the real cost burden of every dollar he sends. Now, consider the family home. In the 2026 real estate market, with interest rates still fluctuating and inventory remaining a challenge, the house is often the most contentious asset. David wants to keep the home to provide stability for his teenage children. However, to do so, he must buy out his spouse's equity. If the house is valued at $800,000 and they have $400,000 in equity, David must find $200,000 to pay her share. In a historical trend seen across the U.S., many men attempt to do this by trading away their portion of the retirement accounts. David decides to keep the house but gives up his entire share of the 401k and the brokerage account. He has saved the roof over his head, but he has effectively liquidated his future security. This is a common case study in the short-term survival instinct overriding long-term financial health. Beyond the tangible assets, we must examine the Qualified Domestic Relations Order, or QDRO. This is a legal instrument that allows for the division of retirement plans without immediate tax penalties or early withdrawal fees. For David, the QDRO is the tool that carves out a massive portion of the pension he earned over 2 decades of labor. This is the moment of the Great Reset. Men who have worked with a specific retirement age in mind often find that, following the execution of a QDRO, their projected retirement date pushes back by 5, 8, or even 10 years. The historical data indicates that divorced men in the U.S. are significantly more likely to work well into their late 60s and early 70s compared to their married peers. Then there are the hidden costs, the friction of the process itself. Legal fees in a contested U.S. divorce can be staggering. A standard retainer for a reputable family law attorney in a major U.S. city in 2026 can range from $5,000 to $15,000, with billable hours ranging from $300 to $700. If the case goes to trial, costs can easily spiral into the 6-figure range. Case studies of high-conflict divorces show that the parties often spend more on legal fees than the value of the assets they are fighting over. This is a war of attrition where the only certain outcome is the depletion of the marital estate. Furthermore, we must look at the impact on insurance. David is shocked to find that he may be required to maintain a life insurance policy with his ex-wife as the sole beneficiary to secure the alimony and child support payments. He is also now responsible for the full cost of his own health insurance, which was previously subsidized through a family plan. These incremental costs, the extra insurance premiums, the loss of the head of household tax status, the move to a single-income tax bracket, create a cumulative effect that sociologists call the male economic slump. While women often experience a sharper immediate drop in standard of living, men often experience a slower, more prolonged period of financial stagnation as they struggle to rebuild their capital from zero. Step by step, the process dismantles the financial ego. You move from being a homeowner to potentially being a renter in a market where 2026 rents have outpaced wage growth. You move from a dual-income household with shared expenses for utilities, groceries, and internet, to a single-income household where those fixed costs remain largely the same. Imagine if every bill you paid suddenly doubled because there was no one to split it with. This is the reality for the American man in the first 24 months post-split. But as the bank account drains and the house goes up for sale, a far more insidious erosion begins to take place. It is the quiet disappearance of a man's social identity and his standing in the community. The financial hit is measurable, but the social hit is often invisible until it is too late to reverse. In Part 3, we delve into the social death of the divorced man, the moment the phone stops ringing and the friend groups choose sides. You need to know why historical trends suggest that 60% of a man's social circle vanishes within the first year of a split, and how the loss of community is more dangerous than the loss of the 401k. The isolation is coming, and you need to see how it is built into the very fabric of the American divorce experience. This social erosion begins with the phenomenon known as the couple friend cull. In the United States, social architecture for middle-aged adults is almost exclusively built around the pair bond. Imagine a man named Robert, a 45-year-old software architect in Austin, Texas, in the year 2026. For 15 years, Robert and his wife were part of a tight social orbit of 4 other couples. They shared birthday parties, holiday traditions, and expensive summer rentals on the coast. The day the divorce papers were served, Robert did not just lose a wife. He effectively lost his entire social calendar. Within 6 months, Robert finds that the text threads have gone silent. The invitations to the Friday night dinners have stopped. This is not necessarily due to malice, but rather the awkwardness of the odd man out. In a group of couples, a single man is a structural anomaly. He is a living reminder that the stability of the group is an illusion. Historical trends in U.S. sociology indicate that women are typically the social architects of the family. They manage the emotional labor of maintaining friendships, sending the holiday cards, and coordinating the logistics of the group. When a man exits the marriage, he is often exiting the only social infrastructure he has. Robert realized too late that his friends were actually his wife's friends first, or rather, they were friends with the unit he represented. Without the unit, he is a social ghost. This leads to what researchers call the secondary loss of divorce. While the primary loss is the partner, the secondary loss is the community. For American men, who are already facing a documented loneliness epidemic in 2026, this sudden isolation is a catastrophic health risk. Data suggests that social isolation in divorced men is a leading indicator for a decline in cardiovascular health and a significant increase in stress-related illnesses. Step by step, the social death of the divorced man follows a predictable trajectory. In the first 3 months, there is a flurry of support. Friends check in, offer a drink, and provide a listening ear. However, as the legal battle drags on and the man's emotional state becomes a constant of the relationship, the compassion fatigue sets in. By month 6, the friends have returned to their own busy lives. By month 12, the man has been replaced in the group's social rotation. For Robert, the realization hit during the first major holiday season. He found himself sitting in a minimalist 1-bedroom apartment while his former social circle was gathered at the same house they always were, likely avoiding his name in conversation to keep the mood light. Imagine if your entire identity was tied to being a member of a specific tribe. That tribe exiled you because you no longer possessed the requisite membership card. Spouse. This is the reality for millions of American men. Furthermore, the 2026 digital landscape complicates this further. In the era of hyper-connected social media, the divorced man is subjected to the algorithm of discontent. Robert's feed is filled with images of his former friends and his ex-wife moving on with their lives, attending the same events he once anchored. This creates a psychological feedback loop where the man feels as though his life has stopped, while the world's clock continues to tick. We must also examine the workplace social shift. In high-stakes American corporate culture, marital stability is often used as a silent proxy for personal reliability. When Robert's divorce became public knowledge at his firm, the dynamic changed. He was no longer the stable, family-oriented leader. He was the man in crisis. Case studies show that divorced men often see a temporary stagnation in their career trajectory because management subconsciously views them as distracted or unstable. The social capital he built over a decade was devalued overnight. His colleagues, unsure of what to say, chose to say nothing, further deepening the sense of professional and personal isolation. The fracture also extends to the extended family, specifically the in-laws. For many men, in-laws are a second set of parents. In the U.S., the legal finality of divorce often mandates an immediate and total severance of these ties. Robert, who had spent every Thanksgiving for 20 years with his father-in-law, suddenly found himself a stranger to the man he once considered a mentor. This is a profound loss of ancestry and belonging that many men are ill-prepared to handle. They are taught to be providers and protectors, but they are rarely taught how to navigate the total loss of their social heritage. The step-by-step erosion continues into the realm of new social attempts. When a man like Robert tries to enter the dating or social scene in 2026, he carries the weight of the social death with him. He is a man without a tribe. The modern American dating landscape is a brutal environment for a man who is emotionally and socially depleted. He often finds that he has forgotten how to build rapport outside the context of a marriage. He is a social novice in a middle-aged body, which leads to further rejection and deeper isolation. This is why historical trends show a high rate of what is called the hermit phase, where divorced men simply stop trying and retreat into their work or solitary hobbies, further accelerating the decline of their mental and physical well-being. The loss of community is more dangerous than the loss of the 401k because capital can be rebuilt, but a social network takes decades to cultivate. The divorced man in the USA is essentially a refugee in his own city. He lives in the same zip code, works the same job, but his entire social geography has been wiped off the map. He is navigating a world where every familiar landmark, the Saturday morning coffee shop, the neighborhood park, the local gym, is now a trigger for a life that no longer exists. This psychological displacement is a core component of the divorce experience that is rarely discussed in legal proceedings, but is the most difficult aspect to recover from. Case studies from 2026 show that the men who survive this social death are those who proactively build a new male-centric community from the ground up. But for many, the shame of the divorce prevents them from seeking this out. They view their isolation as a personal failing rather than a systemic outcome of the American way of life. They stay in the apartment, they work the extra hours to pay the alimony, and they slowly disappear from the social fabric of the country. This is the quiet crisis that defines the modern divorced man. He is financially drained, socially invisible, and emotionally unanchored. However, as devastating as the social death is, it is merely the backdrop for the most high-stakes conflict of all. While the bank accounts are being drained and the friends are disappearing, a much more visceral battle is being waged over the one thing that truly matters: the children. In Part 4, we are going to dive into the custody gauntlet of 2026. We will analyze the step-by-step mechanics of the U.S. family court system, the reality of the 50-50 myth, and the psychological impact on fathers who are relegated to visitors in their own children's lives. You need to understand why the legal system often treats a father as a secondary parent, and what the historical data says about the long-term outcomes for children of the divorce industrial complex. The war for the next generation is just beginning. The war for the next generation